Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro and prep coach. Today's guest is Louis-Dominique. Louis, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, Quentin. It really means a lot, man. So appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure, man. So we're going to have an awesome conversation. I want to kind of kickstart everything with a couple of questions I like to ask all my guests just to kind of get the conversational ball rolling, so to speak. So the first question is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Okay. Favorite bodybuilders, I got to say I'm a huge Flex Wheeler fan. Always been. To me, he was the epitome of like the muscular development, the physique, the lines, the aesthetics. Everything about him was just so amazing. So huge Flex Wheeler fan. And then I got to say, especially like from the time that I started following bodybuilding and all that stuff, I got to say I'm a huge fan of Phil Heath also as well. Like to me, I know Ronnie Coleman is really something, but I've always been really appealed by Phil's physique and his mentality, his like winning mentality, his winning attitude. So those are definitely my top two favorite bodybuilders ever.
Excellent. Can't go wrong with those two, right? That's
Definitely not.
That's a good couple right there. All right. Now, at what age did you start lifting weights? And why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
Okay. I started lifting at 16 years old during high school. But honestly, it was just like, I wasn't even serious about this. I was just lifting during lunch breaks. So it was maybe 30 minutes. We were just kind of messing around with the friends. My high school actually just got a new gym done. So that's why I just started working out there. I used to play football back then. So that's my background. So that's the reason why I started lifting. But I never really got into it just because I got to say, I was pretty good at football. I was really into the whole athletic things, but I wasn't taking weightlifting seriously, which in hindsight, I should have done. But yeah, so it was just lifting here and there. And the funny part is only when I retired playing football that I actually started lifting for real because I just had way too much time and nothing to do anymore. So that's why I joined the gym and I just started going hard at it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so Louis, I like to kind of use that latter question just to transition into my guest's upbringing, their backstory a little bit. So talk a little bit, about where you grew up. Talk about your childhood a little bit. You mentioned football. Did you play some other sports? Just paint that picture of those earlier years of your upbringing, your childhood for us up to about high school, and then we'll transition from there.
Okay, for sure. So I'm from Montreal, Canada. So I grew up in Quebec, the French part of Quebec. That's why maybe you can catch a little accent. And so came up in a nice little family and everything. My family was always been into sports. So it was like for them, as soon as I was 4 years old, they signed me up to a soccer team. And that's really my first introduction I had to sports. But especially here in Quebec, everybody that are young are either playing soccer, which is probably the most popular because it's a bit cheaper as well, or they're playing hockey. My parents didn't necessarily have the means to have me play hockey, so I just ended up playing soccer, which I liked. So I played for 13 years. I was very competitive as well, but it was only a matter of time before I joined a football team. The only reason why I didn't start playing football earlier was because I wasn't allowed. My parents were like, "We don't want you to join football before before you enter high school." So I only started playing football on my second year of high school, which I was like 14, when I turned 14. So that was my whole upbringing. Yeah, sports were always the predominant part of my upbringing, of my younger years. I'm really someone I'm big into sports. I'm big into football. I would say I love football even more than I love bodybuilding, which is the crazy part about it. But yeah, always been very active. I was always the kind of kid in high school who gets picked first into like physical courses and stuff. I was always moving, always active. I would just had overall energy, if I would say. So definitely, it was always a big part of my life.
Now, you said football was a pretty big part of your life, especially once you got into high school. So did you have like a favorite football team, or were there some football players when you were growing up that you kind of idolized or looked up to? If so, who were they?
Oh yeah, I was a huge Baltimore Ravens fans just because of those years I used to play defense. I used to play free safety. So like my man was Ed Reed back then because the Ravens were killing it with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. I remember their whole defense. Brian McAllister, Terrell Suggs was there during those years. So I was a huge fan. And also I got to say though, my favorite player was Brian Dawkins. I just always liked the aggressive nature of those guys, the way they handled the game, the way they played the game, their focus, their preparation. And that's probably why it made me the good football player that I was, is because even at the earlier age, even during high school, I was already studying tapes. I was already watching some stuff to get stronger mentally. I was already working on my mindset to really be able to transition out on the court. And that's probably the reason why out of the 7, 8 years that I played football, I've been team captain all of those years. I've always been team captain unless except the last year that I played when I got in in CJEP, which is kind of in between high school and college here in Quebec. It was the only year I wasn't team captain, but I've always been pretty much of a leader nature at heart.
Mm. Now, I want to ask you a little bit more about your parents and stuff. What looking back on your childhood, what do you feel like is something or a few things that your parents really passed along to you or instilled in you from that young age?
Mm-hmm. I guess I could say they just instilled me very early that nothing comes easy, and especially nothing worth having comes easy. For them, hard work was very important. Both of them were really hard workers, very work oriented. Like my mom was into sports. She got injured a lot, so it got hard, difficult for her during the years. But overall, it was more like karate. Same thing for my dad. My dad was also a pretty good runner back in his days. No, not anymore. He got different physique now, but still, he was a pretty good runner. He ran like 3 ultra marathons, which were like 100 kilometers. So just being able to witness that for a kid who's like 12 years old, and seeing your dad run for damn 100 kilometers straight, that was something pretty empowering. Yeah. And just like they instilled in me mental fortitude, and just, you got to work for something. Like they never really gave me handouts. Like I've always had to work for anything, just because they wanted me to learn the value of hard work, and that's how you achieve something in life. So I wasn't a spoiled kid at all. Like, I'm not saying I never missed anything, but they always made a way to make sure that I always deserved and earned everything that I was having. So I think that was pretty much something that really transitions well. That mixed with my football background, that transitions well into bodybuilding.
100%. What were academics like for you when you were younger? Is that something you liked, or did you just kind of go to school to play sports like most of us?
Yeah, I went to school to play football. I wasn't bad though. I got to say my grades were always good. The only time my grades weren't good were in CJEP, but I guess it's only because after I was done playing football, I didn't really care about school anymore, and I was at that age where I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. So I was studying in a class that was just like kind of just a regular basic courses. So I really had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was just going to school just to go to school. But my grades, I've never been someone who had issues with like keeping grades up and stuff. That was pretty easy for me. But it was just, I just felt unmotivated though. School wasn't the motivation, football was.
Right. Makes sense. Now, okay. So most of us, when we're in high school, we kind of start thinking about post high school. We start thinking about college or a career or something like that. When you were in high school, what were your thoughts in terms of what you wanted to do when you grew up, quote unquote, or post high school? Where was your mindset at like that? And then once you graduate high school, where did life take you?
I was really ready to go to the NFL. That's really what I wanted. Like my only goal. I didn't really had no plan B. And there's also the CFL here in Canada. So my two options were like, I kind of had a plan B, but my plan B was still professional ball. So I was like, it's either I end up in the NFL or I end up in the worst case scenario, I end up in the CFL. I knew I had like, it's not to brag or anything, but I knew I pretty much had the talent. Not talking about the NFL, but at least the CFL, or maybe like at least get far in the sports and try this out. After high school, I just wanted to leave and go study in the States as well, just to get more opportunities. So I end up having a scholarship to go to the Kent. So it's a prep school in Connecticut. I've had some issues over there with the I got injured as well. So because of my injury, that's where I lost my scholarship, and that's when I stopped playing football. But I was supposed to go there. Everything was already planned pretty much for me to move over there, play for 2 years, and then go to college in the States as well. I already had some offers from colleges as well already, which was pretty crazy. So it was a good thing. My mind was all set on football. I didn't have no plan B. After football was over, I transitioned. The only thing that I wanted to do, which at that point I still didn't really know what else I wanted to do, but I studied to be a firefighter. So I went to Firefighter Academy, got that done. which was also pretty much like firefighter academy is a bit like the military, maybe not as strict, but it's still pretty regimented. So it was also my first time going to class and been told by like teachers and stuff to just shut the fuck up. So I was like, oh shit, okay, this is different right now. But it really brings you, like, it makes you tougher also. It makes you also learn like discipline and all that stuff, which I was really lacking a lot. So after firefighting academy, that's where I kind of I didn't end up working as a fireman or anything, but it really builded me into like the more mature person that I later on became. And the only reason why I started working as a personal trainer was just a decision that I took right after I was done with the academy. So I remember I was just sitting at home contemplating my life. And I was like, the only thing that I really enjoy is training. It's the physical activity. But in my mind, I always thought like, can you really make a career out of like training people? Because that's always kind of a thought. Like, I don't want to be a coach who's making like 30K a year or anything like that. I was like, I want to live comfortably. So I was always like pushing this idea to the back of my mind until after one full year, I went to university to study marketing. And then after one full year, I was like, you know what? Let me just give this personal training a shot and let's see where this leads. And then we're like, what, 9 years later, and I still haven't left, and it's been building up ever since. So that's how it started.
Okay. Now I want to ask you, why did you originally decide to go into firefighter academy? Did you kind of like, the concept of being a firefighter when you were younger, or where did that kind of seed get planted in your mind?
I did, yeah, I did. Probably because of movies and all that stuff. I think it looked like I don't know, with the bravado around the job, and because of movies like I was a huge fan of the Backdraft movie. So and I was looking all the Chicago Fire and all that stuff. So I was pretty big. But I think the thing that appealed to me the most about firefighting is pretty much the same as football. It was kind of the team spirit around it. So you're like, in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna make a decent salary just working with my boys 24/7 and just going out on calls and kind of risking our life, quote unquote. But it's like I wasn't seeing it as much. I was more seeing like the team bonding and like the team effort behind the job, and also the physical part of it, which was really which I was relating myself to. So that was what bring me to firefighting. And also, I remember at that time, all of the people that I was training with, because I just started working out as well, they were all trying to study to get to be firefighters as well. So I think when I got recruited over there, we were probably like 6 of my best friends. We just entered the school at the same time.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, there is something, one of the guys I had on earlier this week, football was kind of his thing growing up as well. And we had a great conversation just about, they're kind of like, once you're done playing football, sometimes it's hard for us to replace that camaraderie, just the team and the guys in the locker room and joking around and all of that. So I could definitely see where that would be a great transition for you. Now, so you go through firefighter academy, excuse me. And then you're like, hey, you know what? I think maybe I want to pursue this personal training thing. You go to a school for marketing for a year, and then you kind of just go for the personal training thing. Now, before we kind of get into bodybuilding talk, I want to kind of wrap things up in terms of business talk here. So now, after that year of marketing, how did you kind of start out in terms of personal training? Do you start just like in a Globo gym and then start building up your clientele and then go online? Walk us through those steps, Louis, please.
Yeah. So the first year I was working, it's called Energy Cardio. It's a bit like Good Life Fitness in Ontario. I don't know if you guys heard about this. So it's just a big chain gym, really like a popular gyms. It used to be popular back then. I don't think there's much of them anymore. But the difference with them were when they hired you, they were paying for your whole certifications. So that was also another incentive. And then it's got my thing lagging. Okay, we got it back. Okay, so so I applied to them. I met with the owner, the manager, and then everything became like a week later. I was starting already. They paid for my certifications. I did go through my personal training certifications, and then I started working over there. But I was just working for them, so it was still like the salaries weren't that great and stuff. You don't make your own hours and whatever. But I guess it was just kind of the school of coaching. You got to start somewhere. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have anyone. So at least it gave me like a basis of how to run a business. So I worked through Energy Cardio for a year and a half. And then afterwards, I was like, I think I'm pretty much ready to go out on my own. So I rented an office in a gym in Montreal, which completely went to shit. That didn't work at all. I thought I was ready, realized it wasn't. And I was working, I remember at that time, I was working as a doorman 4 nights a week. But the salary that I was making in nightclubs was only to pay for my office in the gym and pay for my life. So it wasn't really worth it. So I only stayed there for, I think I did 6 months, and then they were opening up a world gym in Laval, so close to Montreal, and I kind of knew people from there. So I got to a call with the manager over there, and then they just hired me. The salaries were a bit better already than Energy Cardio, so that's what was appealing to me, and I felt like I could truly develop a good business over there, and that's where it really took off. So over there, I made some. I was doing a lot of PTs. I remember up to a point I was doing 63 hours of PT per week. It was just insane, working from Monday to Saturday, even on Sundays as well. But you know what? I was young. I was single. I didn't really care. My only thing was just I was so tight on budget and on money for years that once I got there and I had the clients, I was like, let me just work now. Let me just make some money. Let me just live, like, even if I wasn't enjoying life as much, it was really a great opportunity. So I worked with them for I would say close to like 3 years. And then what changed is I got the opportunity with one of my partner to open up a supplement store and coach and start online coaching while I would be a supplement store owner. So that's what I did. So I went from that gym to opening up my own supplement store with them. I had two partners back then. Uh, we kept those stores afloat for, I would say, 3 years. And then we were like, this is not our industry. That's what I realized. I also took off and kind of got my own identity as a coach, because during those years when I opened my supplement store, that's when I turned pro. That's where I really got a bit more popular into bodybuilding. So my coaching took off as well. And then that's where I realized I was like, I really don't care about the supplement sale anymore. I just want to be coaching full time. So from there, I went to full online coaching.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you this, Louis, do you feel like those years, personal training, like in person before you really started the online stuff, do you feel like that was a great foundation for you and made you a better trainer and a better coach once you did transition more to the online? If so, touch on that for a minute.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I feel because you get more of a feel of not just people's mindset, but people's personality as well. I feel like online coaching, if you don't connect with your clients, it can get pretty cold. Like people cannot feel that their coach really cares, and that's something that I pride myself into. But I'm someone by nature that's very caring as well. So like, and I think I got that also from like ever since my football years. It was like when I was my team captain, it's like it's my team. Those are my guys. I need to take care of those guys. I need to go to war with those guys. But I've always had that mindset with my friends, with my family, with everything. It's like I'm a person who's always trying to like protect his people, protect his family, and I'm pretty much the same with my clients. Like my clients pretty much all see me like as a big brother, and that's what I want too. So all those years of personal training made me. I was just in contact with lots of different personalities and different type of peoples, which kind of it made me aware of people's mindset, what makes people tick, what drives people as well. So yeah, more of like the human nature of coaching, and not just so here's your plan and let's see you back in 2 weeks and then blah 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 whatever.
Yeah. Now, let's take a step then into kind of how you transition into bodybuilding, right? So
Yeah.
growing up, we play sports. Most of us, at least us boys, start lifting weights at some point, more sport specific because of football or some other sport. Now, talk about when you started to train like a bodybuilder, and what was the initial attraction for you to maybe start pursuing competing as a bodybuilder or in some sort of physique competition?
Yeah. So after football, I was just stuck in a rut for a while, and I felt it was probably my first encounter with depression, just because from all of a sudden I went from football practice and just being with the boys 6 times a week to nothing anymore. So I was only going to school, studying in something that I didn't even like or I didn't really care. I was already living on my own in an apartment, It was a really tiny apartment. I remember also is like a small studio. So it was nothing big or nothing crazy. But at that time, I was just like, I just don't know what to do with my life anymore. So I think my mom actually got me my first gym membership, and she was like, just start working out. And oh, also the first reason why I started working out was for physiotherapy, because my injury when I started was through my right trap, my something in my neck and my shoulder. It was all bummed out. So the first thing I did was like I was lifting like 2 pound dumbbell and trying to do like side laterals and let's try to work on my rotator cuffs. So I was doing those in the gym. And then just by looking at people training and starting to see some more muscular physique, it was like, I kind of want that kind of physique, especially because I was real skinny as a kid. Like I was big into football, but I was more of the athletic kid. Like I was kind of compensating because I had a great vision of the game, but I wasn't someone that was crazy strong. I wasn't big by any means. I remember like in CJEP, I was like, I'm 5'11" and I used to weigh 140 pounds. So I was pretty skinny already. But you know how it is, especially at those age, 18, 19 years old. So I started working out like more seriously. Then I started to put some muscle on. Then you start to get noticed a bit more by girls. So at first it was just to get accepted and just to have some fun. It wasn't nothing serious, but I truly fell in love with bodybuilding. I think it was first when I first bought my first supplements. I remember the first supplements I ever bought were Muscle Tech, their pre-workout back then. And I was the worst. Like the seller just told me everything. I was on Nitrotech, their pre-workout, their protein, the Cell Tech, the creatine with sugar, whatever they used to put in those. It was awful. They're big ass tabs that you had to try to swallow and stuff. But so I bought everything. But I remember there was a link to the website, and at that time, everyone was sponsored by Muscle Tech. It was like Phil Heath, Phil, Branch Warren, Cedric McMillan. So that's where I really started like following these guys. And I remember I was doing Jay Cutler's workout, which was in the protein tub. It was already like his full workout routine or whatever. So that's what I was doing for the first maybe 2 years of me lifting. And then I really got appealed to muscular physique. But I gotta say, even before that, I've always been appealed by more muscular physique, even through superheroes. I was a big like Dragon Ball fan back then. So like for me, Sengoku, Vegeta, all of those muscles, the upper chest, the vascularity, I was like, oh, this looks dope. And then same thing with the superheroes. So I was always appealed, and especially I guess you always crave what you don't already have. So since I was very skinny, I was like, oh, I'm trying to get muscular. So I started training, I started seeing some results, and it really just became an addiction. And we had a gym in Montreal, which is still there. It's called Pro Gym. At the time, it was really known as like the bodybuilding mecca of Montreal. A lot, like all of the Montreal's bodybuilders were training there, and there was some kind of stigma around that gym. It was like, if you're not already fit, you just don't go there. You're gonna get scared. People are gonna push you out. So I was like, so in my head, I was working in my small commercial gym, and I was like, oh, in a year or two, I'm gonna sign up there. So after 2 years of lifting, I definitely took my courage and I signed up to Pro Gym. And the first guy I ever met, his name was Gregory Ulysse. He's still one of a very good friends. So he was a professional bodybuilder back then, open bodybuilder. And he just really took me under his wing. And I remember I told him one day I would like to compete. And he was like, when? I was like, I don't know when I'll be ready. And the first thing he told me is, you're never going to be ready. If you want to compete, just get at it now and just set up your first show. And then you'll just take it from there. And I was like, sounds good. So 5 months later, I was on stage. I just hired him on the spot and we started working, and I actually did my first bodybuilding show in 2010.
Okay. Now, why don't you walk us through then that first competition in 2010? You know, it happened, it sounded pretty quick, but how did the prep go? Did that coaching experience with that gentleman go well? And did you enjoy being up on stage? Walk us through that.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was so different to what I was having at the time, because I was still kind of juggling in between wanting to be a bodybuilder, but also wanting to live my teenager's life. Because at 18, 19, living on my own, I was like, I still like all my friends were going out, we're partying, we're stuff, drinking and all that stuff. So, but I couldn't anymore. So it was weird because I was still going out, but like bringing my meals and like going out in the car to eat my meal, or I was bringing myself a protein shake. So my sleep schedule was the worst. But I don't know why, but at those ages, you're able to get away with lack of sleep for some reason or whatever. So I was still studying full time. I was still like partying and stuff without drinking though. But and I was still going through prep, and I loved it. And especially me being like a big time ectomorph, it was pretty easy for me to get lean. So the first time that I actually just followed the diet, it was easy. Like people ask me how much weight did you lose during your prep? I actually gained 15 pounds during my prep. I stepped on stage 15 pounds heavier than I was before, because I started prep at 175 and I stepped on stage at 190. So it was pretty kind of an easy one. It was a really good introduction to bodybuilding. And even my coach, by him being a pro, I think it really helped me because he already had the eye for the division. I did bodybuilding because men's physique wasn't around back then. And so yeah, it was really a great experience, and I loved it. I was completely hooked. The thing that happened though, after my first show, it's like I got a reality check. I was like, okay, I'm 21 years old. I'm no junior bodybuilder anymore, and I'm 5'11". So my coach was like, at your height, you need to be a super heavyweight, or at least a heavyweight. But you say that to a guy that's 190 on stage, not fully conditioned because it was still like baby muscle, and that's really a hard gainer. So during the next year, I was just trying to shove down as much food as I can, train and everything, but I really lost hope for it. I really lost the passion behind bodybuilding. So I actually took 3 years off from bodybuilding after that first show, and I went into boxing. So I was like, okay, I like bodybuilding, I like the physique aspect of it, but I was like, maybe it's just not for me. I don't think I can get that big. I don't think it's in my cards, my genetic cards. So I went to boxing, and what happened after 3 years of boxing was I don't like how skinny I'm getting again. So now I was trying to debate, like, do I want to be muscular? Do I want to be fit and go into and start boxing and do it through matches and stuff? And that's where I made the switch afterwards. So first I was competing in kind of our federation in Quebec, which is kind of the same as the NPC. But afterwards, I heard about this other federation called WBFF, which at the time were the first ones to kind of bring up the muscle model category, which was kind of the precursors of men's physique and classic physique in a sense. So it was still the short, so you were still seeing the legs, but it just wasn't as muscular as the open bodybuilder. So I was like, maybe that's where I fit in. So I joined that division. I did 2 shows with them in 2013 and 2014. So over there, you do 1 show, you win, you go pro. So I did 1 show. I remember I prepped for 5 weeks, did the show, won the show, went pro. And then the next year I did the world championships in Vegas. And ever since then, I was just really hooked on bodybuilding. I was like, I know I'm going to leave the WBFF because it wasn't more, honestly, this federation, like, if people like it, like, it's okay, it's good. It's just a difference of preference. I don't care. But it's more of a show. I wanted it to be more of a competition. I want to be judged by my physique. I don't want people to say, oh, I didn't like your haircut or stuff like that. So I was like, it sounds like bullshit to me. So I did 1 pro show with them, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. And at the same time, men's physique was just growing and growing and growing. Because the funny part is, at first, I was a pretty big time men's physique hater, because in the first years, I was like, those guys are small. Like, it wasn't really muscular at all. It was just like some random beachgoers that steps up on stage, like not even shaved. It wasn't really peaked physique as well. So it was just like a nice 6-pack, but nothing crazy as far as conditioning. But when I got into it, it was when Sadik Adzovic became popular. Jeremy Buendia became more popular in their 2nd and 3rd year of the sport. And the guys were just growing and growing and growing. So I was like, oh, it's looking pretty interesting now. So let me give this men's physique thing a shot. And I would say I did my first men's physique show in 2015. And that's really where it got really serious for me. Like, after that show, I was like, I think I can go pro. I think this is really where I belong. I think in the end, like, this is for me. I found my way. And during those years, everything just aligned with my life. So it was, yes, bodybuilding was getting better. I thought I really had a good shot of turning pro. And also I was really coming into my own as a coach as well. So everything was just going for the best.
Now, Louis, do you feel like once you really kind of like transition into bodybuilding and competing, did that really kind of help give you an identity that maybe you were looking for or searching for post football? If so, talk about that.
Yes, definitely. Especially because it's true, because, and I'm pretty scared of the after bodybuilding just for that exact reason. That's why I'm really glad for my coaching, because I know after I'll be done competing, I can still live up to, I can still stay relevant in the sport, quote unquote, just through my coaching and through my athletes. But I've always been known, especially with my friends, by like the football player. oh, this guy's a football player, football player. Everything about me was football 100%. So once this stops, it was like, who am I anymore? Like you said, it was kind of an identity crisis. So when bodybuilding came around and I became getting a bit more, not just popular, but just coming into my own, because I was like, oh, I think this is really is for me. I couldn't identify myself to it. It was really a good thing. Like mentally, it was a break as well, because I was like, okay, that's where I belong right now. I felt at peace.
Right. Beautiful, man. Okay. Now, so you did your first men's physique competition in 2015. Why don't you walk us through then from that competition? How long did it take you to turn pro? And then why don't you talk to us a little bit about your IFBB career as a men's physique athlete? And then we talked a little bit before we hit record that you are transitioning into classic physique. So walk us from 2015 up to the point that you turn pro. Talk about your IFBB pro men's physique career, and then why are you deciding to transition into classic?
Yeah. So did my first show in 2015. It was a provincial shows here in Quebec. I won the overall. So afterwards, I went straight to nationals, which was 3 weeks afterwards. It wasn't. I ended up finishing in 5th at my first national. But to be honest, I kind of fucked up my own prep just because I was just opening my supplement store at the same time. So it was just a lot of stress, a lot of work. Like I just wasn't sleeping anymore. It wasn't helping my physique. So it was just this accumulation of stress. But I still wanted to hit nationals because my coach, and he was right. He was like, you need to get your face out there. You need to get known in the industry, which was really a good call because after that year, going into 2016, my second year, I remember like the Muscle Insider and another magazine were doing like some columns over there about like who's their pick at who's going to go pro in Canada. And I was always in those. So I had some hype behind my name, which kind of helped. So my second year, first show I did was straight to nationals. It wasn't a perfect peak as well. So I really feel I could have been better on stage, but it was all like me and my coach's mistakes, but whatever. But we were just still getting to know each other. It was only our second year working together. So I placed 3rd, which still isn't bad. I got 3rd at nationals. And then 3 weeks afterwards, I thought I was done, but he was like, there's this show in Pittsburgh called the North Americans. You can go there. And I was like, oh, it sounds like a good idea. At first, I was like, I'm not sure because I'm pretty tired of prep. But he was like, yeah, but you could go pro right away. So we got 3 weeks to figure this shit out and just bring your best on stage. And that's what we did. The only feedback from the judges at nationals was like, if you had came in tighter, you would have won the card. So I was like, okay, so for North Americans, the only thing I need to do, stop focusing about fullness, stop focusing about size and blah, 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 just get drier. So I remember I dropped 13 pounds in between this and North Americans, and that's where I won my class and I went pro. I got second in the overall, I remember, to Ismael Martinez, the guy from Mexico. He took the overall that year. But so 2 years. It went pretty fast for men's physique. When I got in there, I felt I was like exactly what they were looking for as far as men's physique athlete, like the small, tiny waist, the broad shoulders, the wider back, like the V taper and stuff. So it went pretty fast. So got my card there. Afterwards, I did my pro debut the year after in Toronto. So I did the Toronto Pro. Went very good, especially like being a pro debut, no expectations or nothing. I was called in the first call out and I placed 6th, which I was really, really happy about. And then 2 weeks later, I did the Miami Pro. I got 7th over there, so still a really good placing as well. And then I just waited, and the following year I did the Arnold Classic, which was pretty big on my list. So that was probably my most successful year that year, the year of the Arnold. So by then we're like 2018. I went pro 2016. Yeah, 2018. So 2018 Arnold rolled by. I got 11th. I know they only placed up to top 10 in the Arnold, but the only reason I'm feeling pretty confident saying I was 11th is because I was dead center in their 3rd callouts. They were doing 5-guy callouts, so 5 guys in the first, 5 guys in the second, and I was dead center in the 3rd. So I'm thinking I must have been 11th or whatever. So I was pretty happy about this placing, especially because like nobody knew me back then. I didn't have any top 3s, didn't have anything. And at that show, I remember I beat some Olympians, so it was a good thing. And then the 3 weeks after, I was like, let's go back and hit another show. So I did the Fort Lauderdale show, the Atlantic Coast, and that's where I got my best placing to date. I got 3rd over there. So that was like the best year of my men's physique career. Afterwards, which was the last year I competed, was 2019. I really had a tough season, to say. I hate blaming it all on a coach, and I do feel I need to take some responsibility for it too. But I just felt I just didn't have the proper guidance as well. And not saying he's a bad coach. I'm not naming names anywhere or anything. I'm not saying it's a bad coach. It just wasn't a great relationship. I think we just didn't work well together. Maybe he didn't get my type of physique or metabolism or whatever. And on the opposite side, maybe on my end, I wasn't giving out the best information for him to work with. And also, it was my first time working with an online coach, because before that, my coach was always in Quebec. It was a local guy, which is his name is Chris Grunion, which is still to this day one of my best friends. He's always pushing athletes to the Olympia, so he's really a good coach here. But after working with him for 4 seasons and turning pro and doing everything, I felt like I needed something different. So I went to work to this other American coach, and things just went south. So I did 4 shows in that year. I really wanted to place well, so I did 4 shows back to back. I think I didn't make any first call-outs during that season. It was always like middle to bottom of the second call-outs type of shows. So it was pretty deceiving with the years that I had previously, because my trajectory was going up. So that was my first year competing in 2018. Afterwards, I took a break because I was like, I just feel like I need a break. First of all, I'm not working with that coach again. That was for sure. And then the COVID shit hit. So I think when we had it pretty rough here in Canada. So I guess it was harder. No shows in Canada. It got pretty difficult to get to the States, just because we had to do a mandatory quarantine when we get back home for 2 weeks. So I was like, it is not a good sign for a rebound if I can't even go to the gym for 2 weeks. And it also made it difficult for me to hit a second show back to back, because at that time I still wanted to stay in men's physique. But afterwards, I was like, let me just take this time off from bodybuilding, focus on my coaching. I've had some good years of coaching as well. I had more time on my plate to just focus on my clients. And then now it's my comeback season, and I'm really, really excited to hit this classic physique stage now.
So why have you decided, Louis, to go from men's physique to transition into classic? Like what's your thought process in that? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I always knew I was going to end up in classic physique. The minute they started the division, I knew, I was like, it's only a matter of time before I get there. Because if I'm being honest, if classic physique was around when I started men's physique, I would never have gotten into men's physique. And the thing is, the first 2 years that I competed in men's physique, the first thing my coach ever told me, and the judge told me, was that I was too big. Because the first year, there was such a thing as being too big for men's physique. Even if by today's standards, I would have been more than okay. But back then, it was like, no, you're just getting too big. They want more of like a beach body, not too big. Not like, make sure you downsize your shoulders a bit. Don't get your back. They told me my back was too thick also. I had to downsize my back and stuff. So it was like, I was kind of staying away from the heavy weights, and the training was a bit different. It was more like pump trainings and stuff. So for 2 years, it worked. And then afterwards, it was like, okay, but now you're pro. Now you need to get bigger. It's like, oh shit. So for 2 years, you told me I needed to downsize, but now you're telling me I need to get bigger. So it started being more interesting when I turned pro, because at least I could really train like to my full potential. But I knew at some point it was just like a matter of evolution. Like I see myself in my mind, if I would have stayed men's physique my entire career, I would probably have taken it as a loss, as if like I've just stalled and stayed the same for years. Because I do feel like, especially if you're training your legs and you're building your legs up and your structure allows for it, I just see it as natural progression. Like one day you're just gonna outgrow the division, and your physique is gonna be more suited to classic. I'm working with Cameron Cheek right now, and then the thing is, even him at first, we were probably supposed to do classic next year, but the way my physique started evolving, because we've only been working together for 6 months, but the progress I've made during those 6 months is pretty insane. I got to give the guy his credit, man. The guy's an amazing coach. I love him. I told him he's stuck with me for a while now. So yeah, we just started seeing the evolution in my physique, and he was like, we got to a point where my classic physique shots looked better than my men's physique shots, just because of like you can show more when you're flexing and posing. So it was like my physique comes to life when I'm flexing, and not as much when I'm just standing there. So at some point, it wasn't even a matter of, oh, you're too big for men's physique, because I could still fit in a men's physique show perfectly. But it just comes out, it just looks better in classic physique shorts hitting bodybuilder shots. So that's where it ended up. And we were like, let's do the transition. But right off the bat, when I started working with him, he already knew like I'm going classic one day. It was only a matter of time.
Okay, we're going to talk about Cam here in a minute, because he's been on the podcast. I've had a lot of his athletes. I personally think very highly of him. But before we do you guys kind of have in mind a classic physique pro debut then? And if so, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, so I'm competing officially now in 5 weeks, a little over 5 weeks at the Atlantic Coast Pro, the Fort Lauderdale show. So funny thing is that show was my best placing so far in men's physique, but now I'm coming back as a classic physique. But it'll be a good show. I love Florida as well. It's never a dull moment when I get to go there, especially now that it's getting cold in Canada. It'll be fun to go there in November. So this is the classic physique debut. So we have all of our eggs in one basket. We're just hitting that one show. And then afterwards, it'll be back to off season and just keep growing and growing so I can really develop myself into the division.
Excellent. Now, in terms of this competition in 5 weeks, is this a Olympia qualifier for this year or for next year?
This one's for this year, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm expecting a pretty tough lineup because it's the last weekend of qualifications. So I know probably a couple guys will try to get this last minute qualification because I think it's the last American qualifier. So it's probably going to be a good lineup over there. I already heard about a couple guys doing the show, which are all looking great. But this is how the pro league is anyway. So there's no easy shows anyway. So I'm really looking forward to match up with all of them.
Yeah. And I from my perspective, on the outside looking in, I think classic physique is probably, in terms of depth and competitiveness, it's the deepest and the most competitive men's class in terms of bodybuilding currently. I mean, it's growing like crazy. Don't you agree?
I agree. And we can see that at every levels. Like, especially me attending every national shows here in Canada and almost every regional shows. Like the classic physique class are the biggest. It used to be all men's physique, but now classic is really taken off. It's the most popular class of them all. And we're just starting to see the same in the pro level. There's just a lot of guys and not just a lot of guys, a lot of great physiques as well. So it's competitive. It's not like there's 40 guys at the show, but there's only 2 battling it out. No, like a lot of guys are looking great.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I've got to ask you, Louis, how did you come across Cam Cheek and why did you decide to go with him? There's hundreds and hundreds of coaches out there. There's a lot of great coaches. There's some not so great, but how did you come across Cam and why did you, out of all the coaches out there, decide to go with him?
Yeah. So I came across him through one of his athletes, Jarek Crew. So I came across Jarek on Instagram. And the funny thing about him was as first as I saw his pictures, I thought about myself. Just because I remember I saw his photos and I was like, damn, this guy looks so much like me. We really have similar structures. He's got bigger legs than me, I'll give him that. But like as far as a structural standpoint, I was like, damn. And he's actually the one, without even knowing it, that persuaded me to go to Classic right away. Just because I was like, let me follow this guy and I'll see how he does. And then first year, what happens? He does his pro debut in Chicago and he places second. And I'm like, oh shit, this guy's looking like me and he just plays second in Chicago. And then he does a second show, top 5 again. I think he got 3rd or 4th or at the Texas show or whatever. So I was like, if he can do it, I truly feel that I can do it as well. And I was a fan of his posing, a fan of his presentation and everything. So while looking it up, that's where I encountered Cam because Cam was coaching him. So he still is coaching him. So I started following Cam and I was just, even through his social media, the first thing that resonated with me the most was all of his guys are in shape. It's not like only his top guys come in shape and then his amateur guys are like kind of left to the side or whatever. Everyone's getting in shape. And the issue I had with some of my previous coaches was conditioning sometimes, just because I'm someone who gets lean pretty fast, but after a certain point when it gets tough, it's like it's always messed up, or I never come in full on stage, so I don't really show my true conditioning or stuff, like a lot of peaking errors or peaking mistakes. So I felt like I needed something different now. And Cam, just by looking at his work, I was like, this guy's like not a magician, but like really he looked like he was really knowledgeable as well. And he's putting a lot of content on his posts. Like I like sometimes when he posts an athlete's transformation and stuff, but he also gives the data and the details behind it. So just everything that I was reading was so far from what I've experienced as far as the level of coaching that I had. So I was like, I think this guy can actually like provide me something. So I think, I'm not sure if I'm the one who messaged him first or he messaged me. I'm not really sure. I think I messaged him. He started following me. We started chatting a bit on IG. And then we just set up a call. And I think we talked on the phone for like an hour. And the funny thing is, we talked for like various stuff. It wasn't only like a bodybuilding talk. We talked about football because I know he has a big football background as well. We talked about life. We talked about our vision. We talked about coaching. And I was like, I just like this dude. His energy is his knowledge, his attention to details, his vision. And from that call in my mind, I was like, if I'm to work with someone again, he's definitely the guy I'm going to be calling. Because at the time, since I was kind of in shock of my last coaching experience, I was still debating of whether or not I would be coaching myself. And that's what I did for 2.5 years. I just went back to coaching myself. But after a while, I was like, nah, this is too much stress. I'm not going to peak myself and go on stage myself. And especially me already taking care of a lot of athletes. I was like, I don't want also to have to think about myself. So called him back. We had another call, and then it was just click. We started working together. And honestly, best decision I ever made. I should have started working with him 2 years ago.
Right. Awesome, man. I love that. Now something I want to ask you about, Louis. I saw this on your Instagram bio. It said 1% every day in terms of like getting better. Talk about that. Is that something that you kind of live by? And if so, share a little bit more in depth about that.
Yeah, this is my motto. This is something like a words that I live by, just because I truly believe that if every day you're doing something to better yourself or to get closer to your goal, at the end of the day, like somewhere along the way, you're gonna achieve those goals. And procrastination is probably the worst thing in the world. So you have to just go out there and get it. So, and it's not what I tell every one of my athletes. It's like, I really love the quote that Hunter Lebrada is always saying, which is win the day, because it's exactly it. You don't have to think as a bodybuilding prep as this big old like 24-week thing or whatever. No, just take it day by day, but make sure you win every day. And I'm like, make sure you get better every day. Make sure you do your cardio, you do your training, you follow your diet, you do your stuff. And then once the day's done, then you go on to another one, same thing over again. Make sure you get 1% better every day. So this is only what my vision about life. Like, it's okay to have a vision and long-term goals, but I really like breaking it down in like smaller, shorter, like short-term goals, just because first it's more achievable and it gives ourselves something to focus on that's more like in the moment. It's more reality.
Yeah, excellent, man. I want to ask you about coaching, like you coaching other people. What have you found to be the most challenging aspect of being a prep coach specifically?
Yeah. Handling emotions, I would say, is handling people's emotion. I'm someone who's very much an empath in life. Like people's emotions tend to rub off on me a lot. So one thing that I had to like develop after a while is just to not to get too attached, but don't take it too personal, because it's like one of the worst feelings for me in the world is when a guy is deceived about his placings. You know, if I have a guy who's in his head, he's totally winning the show and stuff, and then he gets second, he gets third, he steps out the stage, and you can see it in his face and his demeanor and his attitude that he's just really sad and he's mad and stuff. Something it used to really get to me. I'm not saying it doesn't anymore, but I just have a way of making sure I can handle it that's better than it was before. But that was the hardest part for me as far as my coaching, because of course, as a coach, like, and as an individual, I want all of my people to win, but that's just not the nature of the sport. This is bodybuilding, and you got to be able to live with that. Like, I always tell all my athletes, like, yes, the goal is always to win, but in this sport, you got to be okay with losing. Like, not being okay, but you got to be able to handle losses, because chances are you're probably going to lose more than you're going to win. Like, the Chris's Bumsteads of the world are pretty rare. The Phil Heaths of the world are pretty rare. Like, in most cases, like, in chances are you're not one of those. So you might not win your first show. You might not go pro after a year or two. It might take you up to like 6, 7, 8 years to get that pro card, but it's just the way it is. And this is bodybuilding. You need to be able to deal with that. So that's something it was really tough for me to deal with at first. Also, just because I got to say, my pro card came pretty fast. It was only 2 years of competing men's physique, and boom, I turned pro my like 4th show in a row. So it came pretty easy for me. But once I got to the pros, that's where the reality check kicked in. Now you're not the only guy with great genetic and a great structure. There's tons of them. But now, even now, and I got to say, the caliber of the competition now is even better. When you look at regional shows and stuff, some guys look amazing. So yeah, that was the hardest part about my coaching. And also one thing that I realized, which is now I have the luxury of being able to kind of more pick and choose who I decide to work with. I don't just work with anyone just because if I don't get along with someone, I won't feel like coaching them, just because I know it won't be a good fit, it won't be a good match, and that's in my interest, and that's also in theirs interest. But also making sure that I'm able to really talk and stay honest with my athletes. So especially meaning sometimes being able to say no, which was something I was having a hard time doing at first. If some athletes was like, I want to do this show in 4 months, and he's not going to be competitive, let's not say yes just to like flatter his ego or whatever. No, I need to tell him right away, like, no, we're not competing this year, and we'll just take the whole year off and come back next year. And if that doesn't work for him, then too bad. At least I'll stick to my words. But in my early words of coaching, that was definitely something I used to like. If I could take back some of those preps, I would. This is definitely something that I like. I think every coach did at some point, though. Bringing someone on stage who deep down in your heart, he's not 100% ready, or he's not muscular enough. He's not at that point in his body development yet to step on a bodybuilding stage. But yeah, those are the things that have been challenging me the most.
What have you found to be something that is just like, really what makes you love coaching? What's that aspect of coaching that's like, man, this is why I do this coaching thing?
Yeah. Honestly, the development that you see in people's lives through bodybuilding is pretty insane. And it even goes, it transpires even beyond bodybuilding. I've seen some guys that I've coached in their early days when they turned 16, 17, and I've worked with them up until they were like 24. And now they've took all of those foundation that they learned through discipline, hard work, and all that stuff for bodybuilding. And now they're like company owners and stuff, or like big time lawyers or stuff like this. And we're still in contact, and they still tell me that everything that I used to tell them back then, they apply the same principles in their job right now. So that's something that I really like. I like to see people coming into their own and just finding themselves. And there's nothing better than for a person to realize his own worth. That's something that's just probably is from my empath nature as well, but it's just so empowering for me as well. Just the face of someone when he's been working and grinding for years, and then he finally achieves his goal of winning a show or going pro. Those feelings are, man, you can't put a price on those feelings. This is really something I strive for. This is really something it's my full passion. It's something I live for. So definitely being able to see the evolution, the personal evolution of my athletes, as far as not just as far as athletes, but as far as individuals in their own life, that's something that's very empowering for me.
Now, what is you brought up the word vision earlier in terms of talking to Cam. What's your long-term vision for your coaching business? And then do you kind of have a long-term vision for your life? Like, what's that one thing or a couple things that you're really in pursuit of for your life, Louis?
Yeah. As far as coaching, I really want to establish myself as a good coach, especially here in Canada and stuff. So even it's funny because Cam's much younger than me, but I still look at him as if he's like that high up, and he's built a pretty nice business right there. That's definitely something I look up to, and that's something I want to emulate. So just by me even working with him, I get to learn a lot, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from a business standpoint as well. Because I'm always taking notes. I'm studying everybody, so I'm taking notes. And yeah, that's something I want for myself. I want to be able to bring my coaching in a spot where it's like it's set. Like I'm good. I'm forever good. I'm making a nice living. I don't have to restrict myself on anything and money. And it's not just the money thing. It's truly because I love it. I want to be able to work with more individuals. I want to make more pros. Like I've got one pro card so far, but my goal is like I want to get a tons of pros under me. I want to get some Olympic qualification. And I know I've got some athletes on my rosters now that I'm like, those people, if I do my job correctly, they can go pro for sure. And they even have like Olympia caliber. And I don't use those words lightly because I feel like they've been thrown around too easily sometimes. Oh, I want to go pro, I want to get to the Olympia. But it's more of like a genetic thing and also a mental thing. Like some people just have it in them, like the will to win, the will to do whatever it takes, mixed with the crazy genetics from a young age. So yeah, actually, that's just really what I want to achieve as far as a coach. Like I want to be at the Olympia as a coach. Yes, I want to be there as an athlete also, but I would love to be there as a coach and see my guys on stage and be like, I prepped him for that. Like we got there together. That would be something that would be really, really good for me. And this is and just coaching overall. This really is my vision. And as far as my personal journey, I want to get to the Olympia stage. This is really my goal. This is like, I'm sure that if I end up not getting there in a certain way, I'll feel like, oh, I didn't achieve what I set out to achieve 10 years ago, whatever. But yeah, my goal is really to get there. And I'm a realist also. I don't think it's necessarily in my cards to win the Olympia, but just getting there, just winning a pro show is something that, like, how many people can say they've won a pro show? There's not a lot over there. How many people can say they've won pro and then win a pro show? It's only like a small percentage of those people, and I want to be able to say I'm part of that percentage. So this is really my long-term goal. I'm not even like I really want to do a top 10 at the Arnold Classic, and I want to win a pro show and get to the Olympia. Those are my personal, like, competitors' goals.
Love it. Okay, now this is going to be a not a trick question, but it's a unique question. So if you had the choice to have one of your clients go to the Olympia, or for yourself to go to the Olympia, either or, you either have a chance to have a client go to the Olympia, or you get to make it to the Olympia, not both. What are you going to choose?
Is it for only one specific year or forever?
Forever.
Forever. So it means like I'd never get to the Olympia, but my athletes will go to the Olympia?
Correct.
I would choose that. I would choose my athletes to go to the Olympia. Perfect. Yeah, because I'm thinking long time. I'm thinking long term. So like going to the Olympia, it's nice, but from a business standpoint, me bringing people to the Olympia, I think will be even better. And in this case, I can bring more people to the Olympia later on. So, and more people, and so just like, yeah, that was a hard. It's a hard thing to manage, but when you're prepping as an athlete, but you're also a contest prep coach. It's like whichever I'm gonna focus more on. And one thing that I've realized is my athletes have been coming in first. Like, especially now, we've been doing some deload days and stuff, just because I was away for 3 weekends in a row at shows, and it was like stress is high, sleep is low, and all that shit. So like, it's not the best for a contest for my own contest prep, but still, I needed to be there for those people. So I'll always keep my job as the forefront, because yes, I'm a competitor at heart. I love it, but like, my long term, like, what's gonna put food on the table for me are my athletes, and not just my own accomplishments. And I do think I'm still living those accomplishments through my athletes as well. So if I absolutely need to choose, then it will be them. Yeah. But I would rather much prefer both of us.
Right. No, I know. Just a fun question, right? So
yeah.
Kind of the last topic I want to hit on here before we kind of wrap it up and I let you go.
Sure.
Training. Now, you mentioned a little bit, like when you were men's physique, you kind of had to just do more like pump workouts because you couldn't get quote unquote too big. How has your training kind of changed or evolved now that you are classic physique, and kind of give us some of the specifics of your training methods, or the way that you kind of like to train current day?
Yeah, my trainings have completely changed, and a lot of people have been asking me, because I've made some really big progress this past year, and just these past 2 years, I would say this past 2 years, but especially this past year. And people have always said, like, sometimes people want to say it's drugs or whatever, but like, I wasn't on a cycle before we hit the 16-week out mark. So like, it wasn't a gear, a PED thing or whatever. It was just a training thing. I just completely switched my vision, my approach with training. So now for me, progressive overload is key, and just making sure I really focus on my exercise execution. Because back then it was more about just bringing a weight from point A to point B, but like and especially like I got some injuries and stuff. So you get injured, you mess something up. And it's also, you realize, and it was also, I just started doing those also to make sure I bring up some lacking body parts. So I had issues a lot with my legs and with my chest, and they only started growing more when I started to be more careful about my execution. And it was about realizing that to get bigger quads, I don't need to train them 3 times a week. I just need to actually learn how to train them. I need to learn about knee flexion for quads. I need to learn about just engaging my hamstrings for real and try to connect with them. I need to learn that the types of squats that I was doing wasn't even doing much for my quads, and it was all going through my glutes. So it was just being more conscious. So I started reading more, and I got to give a big props to John Jewett as well, because his online course is I honestly feel his online course is the best there is for people that are into coaching, especially bodybuilding coaching. This is really like, the amount of information is really crazy. And just by following guys like Cam, guys like Matt Jensen, guys like I know Kuba Sealing, guy from the UK, their execution and attention to details when they're training is really something that was like, damn, that's crazy. Like, I'm not looking like this when I'm lifting. So you look at them, every movement is controlled. Every movement, there's a vision to a movement. There's an intent. But me, it was just about moving weights. So of course, all of my weights dropped. They took a big hit, but now I'm lifting heavier than I ever did. And it's like, I'm feeling healthier and I'm actually feeling the muscle now. And I'm actually feel like I'm truly working them. So yeah, my training have completely changed, but it was just about being more, um, being more trying to get perfect execution and not just get some volume in. So I'm not a volume trainer anymore. And I did also realize that volume was an enemy for me. And I think it comes back to the thing of me being an ectomorph. I think me doing too much volume and just burning myself down was actually really altering my recovery. And I just couldn't recover. So that's why it was hard in the off season. But now I'm just trained. I've really dropped on the volume of training, but I higher than the intensity and on the intent and execution. And that's what made the biggest difference for me.
Beautiful, man. All right, Louis, we're going to kind of end it right there. Before I do a really quick outro and I let you go, I want to give you kind of the final say here. So if you have any final thoughts, any final words that you want to leave with all of us, I'm going to turn it over to you. Make sure you give us your Instagram if somebody's interested in connecting with you or reaching out, inquiring about coaching. Make sure you let us know how we can do that. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Any shout outs, any final words? The platform is yours. I'll do a quick outro and that will be a wrap.
Oh, perfect. So, but first, thanks for having me. It really means a lot to me. It gives me great opportunity. I was already a fan of your podcast. So by me being a guest, it just makes it that much better. So really appreciate the love and you thinking about me. Thank you. And yeah, if people want to reach me and stuff, I guess the easiest spot is Instagram. So my IG handle is Louis-Dom. So LOUISDOM .IFBB Pro. So you can just reach out to me there. And then, yeah, probably the best way to contact and just follow my journey. Really looking forward to my show. Shout out to Cam. I know he's probably going to watch this one. And then shout out to everybody that's in my corner and supporting me. I've received a ton of love from other IFBB pros, from men's physique guys, from classic physique guys. And it's really empowering. It does really feel good to get your work recognized a bit. So really shout out to everyone that's in my corner that's supporting me. I love you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Louis, for sharing your bodybuilding story with us today. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
You're welcome, my man. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you. I value all of you. If it weren't for all of you, the podcast simply would not exist. The Instagram is growing. The YouTube channel is growing. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. If you have not subscribed to BTM on YouTube yet, please make sure you do that as soon as you can. It's really important that you are subscribed to YouTube if you want to stay up current with all the latest Behind the Muscle podcast episodes. I do release all the BTM episodes first on YouTube, and then I distribute them to iTunes, CastBox, Podbean, and some of the other major podcast platforms. So again, make sure you are a subscriber to BTM on YouTube. And then also please take this episode with Louis, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Louis. Go ahead and tag his coach, Cam Cheek. And also don't forget to tag Behind the Muscle podcast. That's a great way for other people that haven't heard of or found BTM to find it. They're going to watch, they're going to listen, and they're going to be positively impacted through these coaches and athletes. Powerful stories that they're sharing through this medium of podcasting. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.